Hey, welcome everybody to Trade Genius Podcast. We got a follow-on to Tether that you're not going to want to miss. Things are moving really, really fast, and we got some really, really important information for you. And I think it's really good news for Bitcoin, but it may be tragic. Stay tuned.
Trade Genius.
Hey, Phil, I know we just talked about Tether, but
Yeah.
it's amazing to me that every time we pull on these strings, things seem to get worse. And we were joking last week about the reason why we shorted Coinbase in the first place. Like, hey, they got a lot of Tether. They
Right.
might be in big trouble.
Right.
And what I then you showed me this chart. I'm like, hey, we got to do Tether again. So why don't you kind of take us through this and let's talk a little bit more what's going on here because this is one of those bad news, potentially catastrophic news to potentially long term really good news. So you want to kind of share with us just about this chart?
Yeah. So I think it was on Thursday or December 8th. Coinbase tweets out, "Hey, switch to a trusted stablecoin USDC, and you can now convert your Tether USDT to USDC and with zero fees." Now, let me tell you, for Coinbase to say we're going to waive fees is a huge deal because trust me, Coinbase is all about the fees. They never waive fees. So it's basically telling us that they're losing trust in Tether. They'd rather be in USDC, and I don't blame them. Like I've always scratched my head on why, as an exchange, you'd want to hold so much USDT when it seems like they're never able to really show the true situation as far as their books and what they're holding. Like we talked about in the previous video, they've never had an audit. They promised an audit in 2017, never came. So I think this is wise on Coinbase's part, but I think the fact that they've made this decision, you should take notice. And then the other thing that came out was Barclays had come out with this note here. And Bob, I know you understand this too, and you can speak to it. But basically, imagine the stablecoin now has access to the Fed reverse repo facility. What that means is the Fed will back this against a run. And Bob, you know a lot about this stuff. So how do you, knowing that, how do you think this affects USDC going forward?
Yeah, I think I'm starting to see the jigsaw puzzle picture coming together now. So you have BlackRock and you have Fidelity, you have Charles Schwab, all going to be getting into the Bitcoin custodian game, maybe some of the other alts as well, probably ETH for sure. And one of the things that the with crypto that has been a problem, and we can see it now with what's happening with FTX, what happened with Luna, happened with Celsius, is that they have no place to go. There's no backstop for a what's called a mismatch between deposits and what you lent out as collateral, and that creates what's called bank runs by the Federal Reserve saying you can pledge your coin onto the Fed asset base and get cash for that to manage any withdrawals or redemptions. It basically takes that issue away. And if you have stable coins now that are backed by the Fed, this is a tier one asset, Phil. This is huge. This is
Right.
like on the same level as gold and cash
Right.
and treasury securities and high quality corporate debt. Basically, they're saying, "Hey, we are into this asset class now. This is what we've actually been waiting for,
Right.
and this thing actually comes to pass. That means, Bitcoin is now accepted as an asset, for the big players on Wall Street as an alternative to any kind of banking system issue. I think this is all setting up for me. And if I could do a quick detour, Phil, I
Sure.
shot you a note. Maybe we should talk about it. Is in the future is that everybody was wondering who Satoshi is and who created Bitcoin, and it's right in front of us. I mean, the NSA has patents on this stuff, and they wrote white papers on this stuff back in the late '90s. And I've always my tinfoil hat always had been as Bitcoin is a creation of the United States government or the intelligence agencies or whomever as a backstop for the dollar in case somebody decides to try to take the dollar out of reserve currency. So I think this is all part of that slipping things in kind of in pieces here and then blowing up the competition. And I wouldn't be surprised if they get all this together that they go after and they try to blow Binance up next. But this is huge news. If this gets officially sanctioned, this is huge. Then you can feel very comfortable about trading, Bitcoin or any other things, any other altcoins that are going to be on the exchanges covered by, the United States, the regulatory agencies. Because you'll also probably get SIPC insurance on these assets too, Phil. I would imagine that would be coming down the line.
Right. Yeah. Like you said, this is one step closer for the Fed embracing crypto. And I've always, the big thing that we've always talked about was like where we get to the point where central banks are approving things like Bitcoin as a approved reserve asset. And in fact, France's central bank last year had put in a request to at least look into doing that with Bitcoin, which is a huge deal. That's when you're going to start seeing, because those guys deal in tens and hundreds of billions of dollars, and that's where you're going to see like the asset prices really skyrocket for things like Bitcoin. But and there's going to be detractors that say, oh, well, this is like more like CBDC stuff and the Fed's getting involved. And true, you're never going to get away from regulations. They're either going to outlaw it or they're going to regulate it, right? So which one do you want? You're not going to, it's either or, not going to have anything else. But yeah, I think is going to be a plus for the whole space because you have backing and you have a stable coin. Essentially, that'll be insured against the bank run on the stable coin, right? Because the Fed will come in. If there was like a Luna-esque type thing, I'm not saying that USDC is like Luna, it's not, that it's run properly in my opinion, but if there was for some reason, a strain on the system, probably systemic, they would, as they bail out banks, they would be able to at least, or not bail out, but backstop it so that it doesn't implode and hurt people, right? And then once it stabilizes, then things, level out and they get, the Fed gets paid back. So I think it's actually a really, really positive for the cryptocurrency space. The next one I wanted to view here with you guys and Bob is this Tether chart. This is the one that worries me the most about Tether, okay? And I'm going to show you guys how to do an alert, okay, in case it all starts to crumble in trading view so that we're all on the same page. If this thing starts to go, you're going to get alarms going off. But first, before we do that, this is showing us that it's a stable coin, right? So the peg should always be $1, basically. Sometimes it's always a little under $1, but generally that's the goal of the peg. This thing, it's unusual because it keeps floating over $1. It gets to like 0.0002 or something like that. And then what happens is they print more tethers to dilute it down, right? So there's this mysterious float over peg that allows them to print more tethers. See, the way it's supposed to work is they get USD, they print tether, right? 1-to-1. Something funny is going on here because their market cap is never going down. So this is exactly what happened with Luna. Luna's market cap never went down, but magically the peg would float over $1 and they'd be able to print against it to dilute it back down. That is not how a stablecoin is supposed to work. It concerns me to the point where I think this thing's about ready to come apart finally after all these years. This is not right. This is not how it's supposed to work. This chart shouldn't look like this, where you see it floating above peg and then they print to bring it back down and their market cap keeps increasing. That's just wrong. So I think that there's enough I think going on. There's enough smoke going on to let you know there's a fire somewhere, and there's no reason. You got USDC can be in. There's just no reason, or just be in good old dollars, right? I mean, the beauty about a stablecoin is you can move it around within exchanges, but if you're not really doing that, then there was really no reason to be in it. A stable, so there's then you're back into USD, and that's fine. I think that the days of holding Tether make no sense anymore. So you really need to be out of it. Now, can Tether cause systemic problems? Absolutely. So what I wanted to show you guys was the chart. And here's just a simple USDT USD. All right, you just type that in the trading view. You'll have some choices, Coinbase, Kraken. So this is just Coinbase USDT USD chart. So what this shows you, or what this does, is this. Let me bring my mouse in here. So what you guys can do, right? Bring up that chart, USDT, USD, and you can set an alert. So if this thing drops, that means it's depegging. So you can just right click on the chart, add an alert, and just set the alert. In this case, we can set it to, you can set it to whatever level you want. You can see that sometimes there's these momentary spikes. So let's just say we want an alert at 0.997. So we can just type in there 0.997, boom, and we can ask for a sound or whatever you want, and I'll set this for 30 seconds so I don't miss it, and then that's it. Basically, that's all you need to do. And then you just create that alert, and then now you see that little line there. So now anytime this thing dips, you're going to get an alert or an email, whatever options that you set on TradingView, and you'll know that something's going on possibly. What you would like to see, this is an hourly chart, you'd like to see a quick wick up, but if we start seeing this thing drifting down on an hourly basis, that's a problem. Last time we saw any kind of action like that was back here, during the FTX debacle. There was a decent depeg, and this is serious when you get this, okay? Because if it doesn't recover quickly, we could see systemic risks in the system. So if you're long altcoins or stuff that you just want to be, if you're not in it for the long haul and stuff, you want to get your risk off if you start seeing this happen, because you just don't know if this is going to be the one, and it pulls another Luna and it never comes back. I mean, that it will be negative for the space in the short term, but the strong projects, Ethereum, Bitcoin, and strong alts will survive. But will there be short-term bearish effects? Absolutely. And we already have liquidity leaving the system, like you guys have seen in the previous video, so that would compound on it. But not the end of the world. Things aren't going to zero, but in long term, it's a buying opportunity ultimately. But you don't want to be exposed to risk to the downside if you don't have to. So set that alarm on that. And if it starts to depeg, you'll know if you need to get out of positions, you can. So hopefully that helps. And that's really all I wanted to cover with you guys, just to show you that there's a lot of shady stuff. The economics of Tether doesn't make any sense. They shouldn't be floating above peg just so they can magically produce more. And ultimately, I think it's going to collapse. And so that's what I want to share with you guys. Bob, I don't know if you have any closing thoughts on that.
No, and the only thing I would remind people is start looking around the corners here, okay? They have everybody now freaking out over these crypto exchanges, and in the meantime, the U.S. sanctioned exchanges are really setting themselves up to really take over this asset class. And look at the pricing. Okay, they drove pricing down to a point where they can load up the bus on at a reasonable price to position people for the the coming dollar fall that's going to come out as soon as the Fed starts pausing rates. So we're in the front end of this thing. So don't always worry about the negative. Make sure you get out of this garbage, and make sure you're positioned into the prime ribs here, and get your Bitcoin, get it on the U.S. exchange. Don't fear the regulation, and a lot of times when things are regulated, you get rid of the garbage. And our goal is to make money and protect our families, and I think this is a good way to do it. So great topic, Phil. I'm glad we discussed it again.
Yep. All right, guys. Thanks for watching. Please hit like and subscribe. Really helps us out. And we'll see you on the next video. Take care.
Trade Genius.